All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. So, the New York Jets have themselves a new head coach and a new general manager. And as head coach, Aaron Glenn and general manager, Darren Mogi, are looking to put their stamp on things at Florham Park. They are also looking to wipe the slate clean, and that new slate will not include quarterback Aaron Rodgers. The Jets are expected to move on from Aaron Rodgers in spite of the dead cap and the money that they're going to have to deal with. Now, of course, we all know the story. In 2023, Rodgers came to the Jets with elevated expectations based on what he had done with the Green Bay Packers. But Rodgers is now going to be leaving town with nothing but the past accolades that he came to the Jets with. Uh, Basically, what sums up Aaron Rodgers, Jets career is his first game with the Jets. That opening drive back on Monday Night Football in week number one in the 2023 season. We saw the excitement, we saw the anticipation at MetLife Stadium, and it quickly evaporated when Rodgers suffered that Achilles tear on the first drive of the season. And it was unfortunate for the New York Jets, of course, and it was also weird. And I say this because people, myself included, were mentioning the Jets and the term Super Bowl in the same season. Now, of course, Rodgers spent all of that season rehabbing, came back for the 2024 season. The expectations were still there. And of course, it was a disaster of epic proportions for the Jets as they went 5-12 with Rodgers under center. We saw this Jets team really push the panic button early. Team owner Woody Johnson fired then head coach Robert Saleh after the 2-3 start. And, Saleh has been known as a defensive coach throughout his NFL career. His proud defense, they began crapping the bed the rest of the way that season. At the end of the day, to sum up the 2024 Jets, they were simply a rudderless ship. Okay. And at the same time, Aaron Rodgers looked like a shell of the guy who has won 4 NFL MVP awards. You go back to Rodgers' numbers for this past season. He completed 63% of his passes, 28 touchdown passes, 11 interceptions, threw for under 4,000 passing yards. But it was one of those where he just simply could not get it done in those key moments, and he could not elevate the play of the people around him. So, of course, one of the questions is going to be, is Aaron Rodgers finished? And I'm going to put it out there, and I'm going to say possible, but I'm going to come back and touch that in a little bit further in depth before I tune out or sign off tonight. It's one of those where you have to ask yourself, okay, first and foremost, why did the new Jets regime decide to move on from Aaron Rodgers? Uh, First and foremost, I think it's very easy if you're Aaron Glenn to do that. Why? Because Aaron Rodgers is not your quarterback. You didn't bring him in. Okay. And I think it made it easier for Aaron Glenn and company to do what they did. They basically did something that most people have not done to Aaron Rodgers during his NFL career. They put their foot down, okay, and they gave him an ultimatum. And basically, it's either put up or shut up and show me what you got. And the Jets, this new Jets regime, at least, they're not going to put up with the Aaron Rodgers sideshow, meaning, no weekly appearances on the Pat McAfee podcast, no trips to go find yourself and do whatever you need to do. Basically, they want every guy on that roster, all 53 guys, to be all in to their program. And I could totally understand where they're coming from in that situation. If you are Aaron Glenn, you are attempting to establish your system, your program with the New York Jets. And you think about Aaron Glenn, this is a guy who played, for Bill Parcells for the bulk of his time with the Jets. And it's one of those where, hey, you know what? It's not more of a my way or the highway type situation, but it's a situation where, hey, listen, nobody is above the team. And the thing is, your quarterback has to be one of your best players. Your quarterback also has to be your leader. And if you are Aaron Glenn, how can you tell the other guys on that team that they need to be all in? They need to be buying what you're selling. And your quarterback, your most important guy on the team, is not showing up for team activities. That's the bottom line. And of course, the previous Jets regime allowed Aaron Rodgers to get away with that. Why? Because they needed Aaron Rodgers more than Aaron Rodgers needed them. Why? Because Joe Douglas, the now former Jets general manager, and of course Robert Saleh, the now former Jets head coach, their jobs were on the line. Okay, going into 2023, they desperately needed Aaron Rodgers, and of course the same was the case this past season. So it was one of those where, hey, you know what? Aaron Glenn is basically saying, not on my watch. It ain't going down like that. Here, what's going on? You're saying Rogers needs another ayahuasca. I hope I pronounced that right. Treatment. I don't know what's going on, but the bottom line is something's got to give with A Rod. But again, like I said, Aaron Glenn and company, they weren't going to pander to Aaron Rodgers. And I think at the end of the day, Woody Johnson was already fed up with Aaron Rodgers from last season. So I think that made it a little bit easier. But at the end of the day, Aaron Glenn just came in and basically put on the finishing touches to Aaron Rodgers' brief Jets career. Now, with that said, does the 41-year-old have a future uh, in the NFL at quarterback, or is it time for him to ride off in the sunset? It's one of those where on the surface, you can easily say, hey, you know what? It could be time for Aaron Rodgers to exit stage right. But I don't see Aaron Rodgers hanging it up right now. Of course, if he wants to, he can. But I think Aaron Rodgers wants to come back at least for one more season. And the reason is this: I don't think that he wants to finish his career on this note, as bad as it has been the past two seasons with the New York Jets. Of course, you think back to another former Packer quarterback, and Brett Favre, and of course Brett Favre had so many phenomenal years in Green Bay. Got traded to the Jets in 1 year with the Jets. It simply didn't work out. Favre briefly retired. The Minnesota Vikings talked him out of retirement, and then in his first year with the Vikings, he was able to get Minnesota to the NFC Championship game on the cusp of getting to the Super Bowl. Came back for 2010. The age and injuries caught up to him, and of course, that was the end of the day for Brett Favre. I think Aaron Rodgers is at least going to test the market and see, hey, will somebody out there give him an opportunity? You're asking Heel, where can he go? Uh, there could be some teams out there, who could be interested. I know some people are throwing out the Pittsburgh Steelers. I simply don't see it fitting with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers need a leader at quarterback. They need a leader on offense. We've seen so many of the issues that the Steelers have had on offense in recent years, and I don't think that bringing in Aaron Rodgers is going to help that. I think possibly a team to keep an eye on might be the Vegas Raiders. I know that the Raiders could be interested in a Sam Darnold. Maybe they're interested in an Aaron Rodgers for a year or two. Just think about that. Tom Brady as a minority owner of the Raiders, and then you bring in an Aaron Rodgers. I'll tell you like this: if there's one guy in the NFL circle that could get Aaron Rodgers to be bought in, at least for 1 or 2 years, it would be Tom Brady. So I think that's a possibility out there. There's not a lot of places for Aaron Rodgers to go around the National Football League right now. So, I mean, he might want to, but maybe some teams are just simply saying no, thank you. And they've had enough of it. But again, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to at least try, because I don't think that he wants to finish his career like this. I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers at this point is going to go to a team and make them a Super Bowl contender, but at least to finish his career a little bit better than it was in 2024 with the New York Jets. I think that could be a possibility. So where do the Jets go from here at quarterback? And again, it's one of those where you got the Jets. They're set to pick seventh in round number one of this year's draft. So more than likely, there's not going to be a quarterback there for them unless they address the issue a little bit later on in the draft, which means the Jets possibly could be looking at some of these veteran quarterbacks out there. There might be some veteran quarterbacks out there who do not have the talent of an Aaron Rodgers, yes. But at the end of the day, if you're Aaron Glenn, you want everybody on your team to be bought into what you are selling, and you want a quarterback who can lead. So I think at the end of the day, if they go another route at quarterback with another veteran or even go young, I think if you're Aaron Glenn and company, it's still a step in the right direction. And then the bottom line is the Aaron Glenn era is here as the head coach of the New York Jets. And I think this was his first big move in establishing his program. It's one of those where I think back to that infamous press conference, post-game press conference, for Mike Singletary in his first game as the interim head coach of the 49ers after he kicked tight end Vernon Davis out of the game. And Mike Singletary basically said, I would rather get penalized for the entire game for having 10 guys out there if that 11th guy is not bought in and it's more about him than it is about the team. I feel like Aaron Glenn feels this way about Aaron Rodgers. With Aaron Rodgers, it's more about him than it is the team. And again, if you are Aaron Glenn and you are attempting to establish something with the New York Jets, you can't sit up there and have a different set of rules for Aaron Rodgers in comparison to everybody else, especially being that Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback that you ain't attached at the hip at, okay? So you look at the Jets, and I mean, they have some options. Are they going to look to rebuild, or are they a few players away from getting to the postseason? I look at this Jets defense like this: a lot of talent, but all of these are Robert Sala's guys. So how is that adjustment period going to work for players and new head coach? Bringing in Steve Wilks as a defensive coordinator, I think definitely does help because Steve Wilks is a guy that throughout his NFL career, especially as a defensive coordinator, he has been known to get the most out of his defenses. So it's going to be very interesting to see the adjustment period there. There's talent on offense for the Jets, especially with two young running backs. You got Brees Hall and Braylon Allen. With Aaron Rodgers gone, uh, I would be highly surprised to see Devontae Adams back at wide receiver for the Jets in 2025. Of course, there was a lot of friction there with Aaron Rodgers focusing more on Devontae Adams than he was with Garrett Wilson. And I think the right quarterback working with Garrett Wilson could be a huge positive for the Jets because there is a lot of talent with that youngster at wide receiver out of Ohio State. And like I said, for Aaron Rodgers, where does he go from here? I think he tries to make the rounds in the NFL and see if somebody is going to be willing to give him an opportunity for 2025. But at the end of the day, I really don't think there are that many opportunities out there for him with teams. But like I said before, I simply don't see him looking to finish his proud NFL career on this note. But nonetheless, the Jets, to their credit, they stepped up to the plate and they said, hey, you know what? We're not beholden to you anymore. Okay, a different regime was. And the Jets look like they're going in a different direction. And Aaron Glenn has to establish himself, as a new head coach of the New York Jets. And it was going to be tougher for him to do that if he had, if he was pandering to Aaron Rodgers. So those days are over, at least for Aaron Rodgers with the New York Jets. Let's see where the Jets go from here at quarterback, and let's see what's next for the future Hall of Fame quarterback if he wants to simply try to extend his NFL career or if it's simply time for Aaron Rodgers to exit stage right. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Heal, my man, as always, it was a pleasure. And I thank you for chiming in. You definitely got to stay tuned to this channel because I've got some NBA stuff to talk about this week that I definitely think you'd be very interested in hearing and discussing. Always, as always, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. And always, as always, if you like what you heard and saw on this podcast, please feel free to hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. And once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off. And I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.